What's poppin'? This Mellow back at you with another video. And today what we're going to get into something positive. We're going to discuss the XXL Freshman, the first year. And we're going to talk about where these people are at now, what's going on, etc., etc. And just some observations that I have. I do want to say that, I'm trying to balance the content because, as far as the foundation in this page, we in the foundational stages right now. I want to talk about more than just hip hop and stuff like that. But outside of that, I personally notice how much violence and like negative shit and all of that I talk about. And you just can't get around that when it comes to this hip hop shit. You just can't get around it because even with the gangster shit, you can't get around it because what dominates the game is gangster rap. Even when you look at, I got to talk about this shit one day, just the subject matter that, is hip hop as far as mainstream hip hop, what it's made of. Like you can't get around it. It's in the music. It's in how people conduct themselves. It's in it's all there. So with that being said, I do want to balance it out by giving my perspective on some things more related to the music and the careers and stuff like that, or just even something else that gets away from the fucking violence and like the super negativity and the criminal activity, all that shit. So that's what we're doing today. Plus, your boy is kind of unique in the sense that when it comes to these hip hop channels, like I'm the only one who will really like get into the racial shit, and with that Jason Aldean shit, them fans is on my ass, dog. Shout out to Sheryl Crow, shout out to shout out to Perez Hilton, shout out to all the people who stood against MCMT and all that shit. Shout out to them. They have nothing to do with my video. They just stood against Jason Aldean and the shit he putting out there. But anyways, let's get into it. So this is the thing. What we're going to discuss, I'm going to discuss based on my knowledge, what I know about these people's careers, where they're at now, and things like that. I have not done any research because that's not the intention of this video, to give you a specific, this nigga works at Krispy Kreme. That's not what we doing. I want to talk about, some of their careers. And while talking about some of their careers, I'm going to mention how the game has changed since then. Now, this is from 2007. That's where this is from. This double XL cover this double XL freshman cover is from 2007. It's the first freshman class, and a lot of stars on this motherfucker. So we're going to go down the names real quick. So first I want you to know it's been about 16 years, somewhere in that ballpark. We're going to talk about Lupe Fiasco real quick. Lupe Fiasco is a legend. That's undisputed. When I call these people legends, it's no disputing it with me. You can go and look at the video I made. It's got the Nipsey Hussle picture. What makes a rapper a legend and stuff like that. I'll probably put the link in the comments, so you can go and see that, because that's something I've discussed before. Lupe Fiasco is undeniably a rap legend, a hip hop legend. He came out with Kick Push. I'm going to tell you some real shit. Like when he came out, I was rapping and stuff like that. But again, like this gangster shit has been dominating for quite a while. And around 2000, 99, 2000, when DMX, Rough Riders, and, Cash Money and all of that shit popped off, like the game that's when the domination really like took over. And it wasn't no real alternative, like regular nigga shit going on at all. So when you look at that, Kanye came in the game at a certain point. You got to remember the scrutiny Kanye went through for being different. I mean, niggas was like, Beanie Siegel tried to say the nigga was like gay, like because he was maybe not because of the man person. I can't remember now. I'm gonna tell you, the footage has been scrubbed from the internet. You can see Kanye defending himself, but it was from the Beef DVD dudes. They did like a sit down with Beanie Siegel, and he was like, "That's cool to be. That's cool to be." You got, he was just high as fuck, smack, and just talking shit about Kanye. But that's the type of shit we came from. So when I seen Lupe Fiasco, he's also from Chicago. He's not like, under Kanye or anything. He's his own entity. He comes out off Kick Push, but then he drops that first album. I think the first track on it was Real. And I'm not gonna hold you. It was like a third eye opening experience for me when I heard that, because I was like, bruh, you don't like it's about to be over. Like, he's about to open up a lane for regular niggas to rap about their actual life and be in the industry getting money and shit like that. A lot of people who want, like, if you was born in like 2002 or something like that, you're not gonna understand, because you grew up in the era where Wale, Drake, and Kendrick and Cole are like some of the most popular rappers, and they have great careers. That was not common in the 2000s. Like, we had some of that in the 90s with Tribe and Common and the Roots and stuff like that. They kind of faded out. And then as far as, people in the forefront, in the limelight, at the top of the game, it was pure gangster shit. So Lupe really helped kick the door open for a lot of the rappers that came after him. Just keeping it 500,000. Now, as far as his career, he had a real good career. We're not going to go too deep on that. He had several albums. The Cool was like a revolutionary album as well. Niggas have the sophomore slump. His sophomore album was great. But when it came around time, when he was going through label politics and, Lasers came out, he didn't like the album when he made it. But being that it was successful, he rode with it and all of that shit. He's way past that now. We way past that. Lupe is... Last time I checked, he was teaching a rap class at a college, and that's some very interesting stuff. That's something I feel like I could do, honestly, and I'm not saying I'm in the same tier of MC as him or anything like that, but I know the skill set and all of that shit. And that's something I would be interested in doing at some point in my life. That may not happen, but I know for sure I can teach, beats and music and stuff like that. So that may happen at some point. But that's a great career. He did have a beef with Royce and all that. We ain't gonna go into that. But Lupe is not like, when it comes to like mainstream hip hop and what's going on in 2023, he's not the most relevant. But he's somebody whose name rings bells, and he's had his career. Now, if I had to put a time frame or timeline on his career and like, say where he peaked, when it went down, and where it ends, I'll probably get to that later, because that's something that I want to look at when it comes to these guys. Because the reason I think looking at this XXL freshman list is important is because if you a young dude and you like watching this, which you probably not, I don't know, y'all got to study the game if you gonna do this rap shit. I'm not fucking rapping no more. I'm not pursuing nothing with rap, but it still fascinates me, like, the trajectories of people's careers and stuff like that. I'm not going to go deep on this, but Noriega had a story when I think DJ Envy was hitting him up and stuff like that, and he was fucking with DJ Envy on the early side of things. But Envy hit him up, once he got the deal and once he got hot. And that nigga said, listen, 53 racks for a verse. Yeah, I know we was niggas before this, but I gotta eat, and I'm only gonna be hot for so long. Now, niggas might say that's phony, but look at Noriega's career. Like, Super Thug was the shit. His run did not last 3 years. His run after that, after Super Thug, did not last 3 years. So this shit is fickle, and you can fade out, and that's what it'll be. So, you gotta get it while you can. That's how this rap shit works. So Lupe had a great career. We'll go to the next person. Matter of fact, I'm going to do the trajectory shit. Why not? Now, pretty much Food and Liquor dropped in 06. It dropped in 06. And the last album that I know, which was like, high relevance for him, Tetsuo and Youth is one of them. Actually, that's the one. It's got a joint on there that I can't remember, but he really spazzed on it. And that's one of the last ones where, like, I feel like the relevance was, like, very high. Drogas Wave was another one after that he released. And then he released an album recently, and nobody I know has talked about it. And that's not no shade. You gotta. I know rappers are sensitive about their shit. None of this is no shade. None of it is no negativity. It's just my perspective as far as what I see and what I think. So, with that being said, his run was definitely over 10 years. His run was over 10 years, but as far as when he peaked and the decline may have happened shortly after that, I would say it would be Lasers, which Lasers was 2011. So with that, let's move on to the next rapper. We not going to go that in depth for most of these rappers. I'm going to keep it real because I want to try and keep this somewhat condensed. So let's go to the next one. Saigon. So, as far as Saigon, I fuck with Saigon. He was a part of the mixtape era rappers. He was actually rocking for quite a while before, that Freshman cover came out. He had a good career. He was appearing in, Entourage, acting and all of that stuff. So he really had a smooth wave. Now, the thing about Saigon is he never had like a hit as far as a Billboard hit. He never had I feel like a fair shot on some album shit. I feel like he never had that. And I could be wrong on that, but I don't ever remember having a conversation with anybody about a Saigon album. I actually had to put niggas onto Saigon. My favorite song from him was Stocking Cap, which is ironic. I say it's ironic because I was watching him. When rappers get older, they become more mature and they understand how immature they were back then and stuff like that. But he was on Vlad TV with a mini podcast talking to another rapper who I can't remember their name right now. I apologize. But, they was talking about how crazy the youth is and how crazy, the youth go with the gangster shit. And I can't lie, Saigon had a lot of criticism towards the youth when it comes to the violent street rap and the shit that they be doing and stuff like that. I really wish, because I never seen it during the interview. I never seen them talk about Saigon's history and what Saigon used to do. Saigon used to spit the violent lyrics. He was talking about the kids as if he never did Stalking Cap. That nigga says, you bad. Keep talking that soldier shit. I'll unload a clip, put a fucking hole in your do-rag. I don't got to say the rest. But you get violent lyrics. He was getting off on the gangster shit. But not only that, rest in peace Prodigy, he went up and he punched Prodigy. He's talked about this in a bunch of interviews. Prodigy probably even has talked about it in a bunch of interviews, but he punched him in front of a crowd of people. And if I'm recollecting correctly, he ran after that because the crowd was on stage. It was all Prodigy dudes and stuff like that. Could be wrong, but you can go and listen to him tell the actual stories for himself, and you possibly may be able to find Prodigy telling the story. Saigon had a good career. I won't do a trajectory for him because, again, he never had a hit, a heavy wave. So, that's what he did. But I will say that he did do good with what he had. He did do good with what he had. So I'm going to blow through a few of these real quick. So when it comes to Papoose, he had a very good mixtape run. He was one of the top rappers in the NYC mixtape punchline rapper era. And I was hip to him because my ear was to the streets on that type of shit. But when he got on, the Busta Rhymes Touch It remix, and this is during the 106 in Park era, and Busta was wildly hot at that time. That's when most of the world got introduced to him. And he was known for doing the Alphabetical Slaughter and other raps like that and stuff like that. He got a deal, but the deal didn't really fruition into an album. I remember him and K Slay, rest in peace, celebrating that, he got off the label. And I don't remember him getting another deal or dropping an actual album that, like, you know, charted or anything after that. Like, I don't know any Papoose projects as far as a label album that had a rollout in a video ever. I don't know about that. But Papoose is a New York City legend as far as like on some local shit, him being from there. He is a legend like that. I know niggas is, and that's, I have to say local, because you, when it come to this legend shit, like a motherfucker will hear, oh, Papoose ain't no legend. He ain't da. Like, listen, like, you know, if we talking about like if you live in New York City and stuff like that, Papoose should be a legend to you. And I understand that's hard because so many fucking rappers come from New York that it's like fucking an endless amount of rappers. So I could understand why he wouldn't be a legend. I'm not saying he's a legend in the rap game. I'm not saying he's a legend on a national tip. But as a local New York dude, like, he had a wave that spread it on a national tip. So you gotta, if you in New York and you from New York, you gotta give him that stamp. I ain't gonna say that because, again, like, y'all have such a rich history of rappers. I could understand a nigga saying he's not a legend. Just in my opinion, on some local shit, even though I'm not from there, I feel like he's a legend because he took it way past New York. So let's continue. You then have Joell Ortiz. I'm going to keep it 500,000. We going to keep it short and brief on him. Well, before I go there, I already mentioned Papoose. I don't know anything that he did solo, the charted, no album or nothing, so we won't do the trajectory on him either. Joell Ortiz, he had a mixtape wave. Let me not even lie, dog. I'm not even about to sit here and lie. I got hip to Joell Ortiz when Slaughterhouse formed. I may have heard of him before that, but I didn't get hip to him until Slaughterhouse formed. After that, the awareness was there. Joell Ortiz has been, like, you know, when he started doing what he was doing after the Slaughterhouse and then all the way up to now, you know, I feel like he's had a steady trajectory. That's just what it is. And the one thing about him, and keep it real, like, you know, he's probably had some cuts and stuff. Like, I'm not even about to sit here and lie like I'm a fan. But, you know, as far as him, the one thing everybody knows him for is the bars. And I feel like he's had some very good freestyles and stuff like that. But for what he does, he's still relevant. When it comes to bars, you can still put him in a conversation. If you want to throw him against any rapper, you know, he definitely still to this day can hold up in a lot of those conversations. So that's the type of rapper he is. He's never been and was never set to be a fuck up the Billboard rapper, but he was I will give you this work and I will kill this freestyle rapper. So he's maintained that throughout his whole career. That's what it is. Crooked I, very similar, except, you know, with him being from the West Coast, it's a bit different. You know, because Crooked I is somewhat of, I want to say somewhat of a boss out there. I just want to say that, like, because if you look at some of the stuff, like, you know, I'm not going to go into that. I was going to go into some Rolling Loud, Joe Budden shit. We just going to leave that alone. But as far as, like, you know, Horseshoe Gang, he signed Horseshoe Gang. Horseshoe Gang was under him. And even if we just look at his career, like, you know, the Horseshoe Gang beef with Hopsin and all of them and stuff like that, you know, him and Joel just had that, you know, Slaughterhouse album that caused a lot of friction between them two and Joe and Royce, you know, and they've both made a lot of music. So both, and the thing about Crooked I as well is he is also known for bars, but his reputation because of Horseshoe Gang and stuff like that, and also, you know, the gangster shit and Death Row East, it runs a little bit deeper for him. I said Death Row East. Oh my God, what the fuck? Death Row. He was signed to Death Row at one point. So all of that and just the LA, like, his career looks a little bit different, but still, we know him for the bars, we know him for the flow, we know that he could eat. most niggas that you put on a track with him. That's just what it is. So, same thing with him. Now, everybody else on this list has had a hit. So, we're going to go to Rich Boy because I really used to love Rich Boy as a rapper. I used to be really tapped in to what was going on with, like Polo the Dawn and Hit Boy Group Surf Club and stuff like that. So, when that hit, throw some D's on that bitch, I was really tuned in, and the album had crazy production and stuff like that. His first album was great. It was a very great album. I watched something on him, and I know some label politics got in the way of shit, and he got dropped, basically. He still make music to this day, but I'm going to keep it 500,000. I only know that because of the video that I watched. And I haven't heard any music from him in a decade. A decade, because he was still doing, after he got dropped or whatever, he was still doing mixtapes, and he was still doing albums and stuff like that. Well, I don't want to say album, no. He was still doing mixtapes and videos. But Throw Some D's on That Bitch is a song that I sing to this day, randomly out of nowhere. Rich boy selling crack, fuck niggas want to check. Like, that's some shit. So, he had a hit. The hit was good. One hit. There is no trajectory because he had that one hit and that one fire album. And that's how come, back then the game just didn't make sense, man. It didn't make sense. They would dispose of a rapper very quickly for no reason, even though he performed well and shit like that. They just want to go in a different direction. The industry is real weird when it comes to that type of shit. And I want to say, as far as most of these dudes, this is all MySpace era shit. This is before, the whole, you can do it independent and do it yourself through the internet and SoundCloud and all of that. This is before all of that. This is during the mixtape era and some shit like that, So with that being said, Rich Boy had a very short-lived career. We'll go to Gorilla Zoe next. Very similar, except Gorilla Zoe definitely put in more work than Rich Boy as far as releases. Because, bruh, I was a Gorilla Zoe fan as well. He hit hard with Hood, nigga. He came out around the same time as Jock. They both from Atlanta, and they both was rocking with each other. Now, Jock, he managed to finagle and do a lot of different shit with his career, and he used his likeness to stay relevant. He landed the love and hip-hop shit. I got a record with Jock. If you didn't know, you probably don't, because I don't talk about none of the producer shit on this channel. But I got a song with Jock. So, as far as Gorilla Zoe, he came out real heavy, just fucking up trunks and shit like that with Hood, nigga. I don't even remember the first album because it was the mixtape era, dog. So that nigga had all the Bet She Can't Do It on the Dick. He had all types of shit that was he was one of the rappers that was he'll put the comedy in his shit, but he's not trying to seem funny. And even then, he was still he was just different, dog. He was just different. One thing about him, I'll say this, because I can't really tell you the trajectory of him because, again, he didn't have a lot of Billboard hits and stuff. I don't even know if Hood Nigga was a Billboard hit, but that was the one, and then it wasn't anything crazy after that as far as, on some super poppin' shit. But this cat, I think it was February, he let out a whole mixtape every day of the month that had at least 10 tracks. That's how crazy the mixtape era was, bro. Rest in peace to Dat Piff, because Dat Piff had all them joints, dog. I don't know if Live Mixtapes got him or anything like that, but the dude dropped a mixtape every day of the month, and this was around the time where his decline was going down. Because I remember listening to it, telling niggas about it, but they was like, I'm not about to tap into that shit. So it must have been somewhere in the ballpark of 2010 when he was doing this. But no real trajectory for him, I would say. Just, it was one hit as well. Now we go to Young Dro, and Young Dro is a more prominent figure because he was with Grand Hustle, so he was attached to a bigger rapper off the rip, you know. And he had, you know, his first album, which went crazy. Young Dro is underrated when it comes to the bars and the punchlines, just because he don't give it to you with like a fucking New York flow or nothing like that. You know, cats don't really rate him like that. But Young Dro is, he got that shit. He got that shit. First album went crazy. He even put on Young LA, who was supposed to be up next, but that's a whole different story for another day. I used to love Young LA shit. What did he do? Young Dro was fucking up the mixtape wave and stuff like that. Young Dro is a nigga that even after you would say, okay, this nigga, he's done, it's over, he's falling off, it's done, we not checking for this nigga. Fuck that bitch drops. So if this is an 07, I gotta let you know, somewhere between 07 and 2013, he pretty much fell off. It was like he was kind of out of the way, and then fuck that bitch drop. And yeah, that bitch went up. That was a hit, you know, even if it wasn't a Billboard hit, it was definitely something I could point to as like, yo, this shit made waves through niggas nationally. It's known in every city. If you say the song, niggas will know it. That's just what it is. It was a good song. So he caught a second win with that. You know, I don't really tap into him much, but he definitely an Atlanta legend. You know, he really get around. You know, he do his interviews and stuff like that. He more than likely is still making music. Last time I looked at him was some years ago. He's still polo down to the socks and stuff like that. He doesn't have a trajectory that I'm gonna look into on some Lupe Fiasco shit either, because it's not rich, full of albums and stuff like that. You know, think about that. 2007, a fall off happens at some point for some years, at least 2 years, and then he comes back with another hit in 2013. All you need to know is it was less than 10 years as far as a wave, but you know, he held it down and he had some hits. That's what it is. Now we're about to get to the last two. And the last two are very similar, and I saved them for last because these are the people who I could probably talk about the most, just because they are relevant to this very moment. Is if when we talk about hip hop, when we talk about like, you know, just the culture, when we talk about just like what's current, what's hot, what's going on now, whose name is still bubbling, who's still relevant and all that stuff, like these two niggas are very similar in their trajectory. It's Boosie and Plies. And it's a lot that's similar about them. And we'll just get that out the way. You know, they both came in the game mid-2000s. They both, you know, street niggas from the South. You know, they music is not really similar, but like, you know, it's like real nigga, you know, fucking, you know, gangster shit. I don't know how to say it, but it's like, it's Southern gangster. Boosie and him got a different sound though. That's the thing about it. You know, Boosie goes to jail. Plies is still out. When it comes down to it, when it comes down to the clutch, you know, all these trajectories we done talked about and how long these niggas last and shit. Both of these niggas adapted and became social media personalities. Now they both still make music, and they both, I really can't say for Boosie so much, because I can't say something that like he dropped since he been out that I can point to and say, yeah, that was going over here. Like that was going crazy. I can't point to nothing. But you know, Plies, he done caught at least one hit with motherfucking what is that joint? Ran off on the plug twice. He caught another hit. And even then, you know, he had some joints with Kodak because Kodak fuck with him and stuff like that. Have you ever made love to a real hitter? shit like that. But let's go into them individually. Let's start with Plies. So Plies came in. So I gotta let you know, like, when it comes to Plies, in my opinion, on this list, like, he's got the most, hood hits. Boosie may have more. He may have more, but like, when it comes to that, he got the most hood hits. Lupe Fiasco probably got the biggest hits. Young Dro probably got some of the biggest hits as well. But regardless, like, I had to look at the discography and like really look at it a little bit to like really figure out certain points. Cause I know, excuse me, dog, this shit is crazy. But I know when Plenty Money dropped, that was on the Realest, and that shit used to fuck the club up. So that was like '08. That was like '08. I also looked at his discography, and the last time he charted before, ran off on the plug twice was 2010. So the air quotes fall off, his trajectory was from 2007 to 2010. Now I want to highlight something. I'm not going to find a clip. Maybe if I do a video on Plies, like later into my YouTube career, I'll have the clip in the video. But Plies said something that like really took me early in his career, because Plies used to be like, nyah, 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 like when he talk on his motherfucking records, but like when he get in the motherfucking interviews, highly intelligent nigga, very articulate. He said, yo, I know when it comes to this shit, I'm dropping as much as I can because I know this shit ain't gonna last long. He said something along those lines. That's not a direct quote because I haven't seen the clip in probably a decade. But it's something that stuck with me. The fact that he, as a rapper, knew his trajectory and timeline. You never hear rappers say stuff like that. He said that. And guess what? He was right. Because we talking about '07 to 2010. That's a 4-year run. That's a 4-year run, not even 5. He did a lot of mixtapes. He did he did a handful of albums. And he didn't stop working in. He kept going. He kept getting booked. He kept doing what he was doing. He kept getting money. But as far as the industry look, as far as, charting high on the charts or, having a label put a budget behind them or anything like that, it was over. Not saying his career was over, but as far as, him being at that pinnacle, that platform, it was over. Now think about that. His prime was 4 years. He had to wait 6 years to catch another one. Low key 7 years. He had to wait that long to catch another one. What ran off on the plug twice. He reinvented himself. And I keep it real. I bet you any money he don't need this rap shit. I don't know what he doing. I don't know how his shit is going. But I will bet you any money he do not need this rap shit. And if you want to look at a nigga, and you got to understand, if you're a rapper, this is to the young niggas again, you got to understand, like Plies, what type of lane you in and what the careers look like for the majority of rappers, and even what they look like for rappers who was hot at that time. He had a small window, and he said, I'm going to capitalize on it. And that was it. He kept it moving. After that, he kept doing his thing. He kept rapping. He kept getting booked and stuff like that. But it was not going to be the same as it was. That's just what it is. Now, I do want to say all the shit I'm saying, it is what it is. The rappers themselves may disagree with a lot of what I'm saying, but again, this is all my perspective. So that's Plies. And again, that trajectory is the most important thing as far as him knowing this shit is not going to last long and him getting it while he could. And then even then, he held on, reinvented himself, and then kept, created a whole separate lane for himself. Created a whole separate lane. It also helps keep the music relevant. It helps to get him booked, because at the end of the day, you go back to Gorilla Zoe and shit like that. Like, Gorilla Zoe was just as popping as Plies at one point. Gorilla Zoe run was shorter because he had just that one, and then he had a few mixtapes that niggas was fucking with, and then it fizzled out. But as far as Plies, he had his running in, he fizzled out. But, he made sure he kept putting shit out. He made sure he stayed relevant, and that's what it is. So we gonna move on to Boosie. I don't gotta say too much about Boosie. Boosie was very hot during the Webby give me that pussy era and all that stuff, when Lil Fat was doing the beats and all that shit. I'm pretty sure that's who was doing the beats. I might be wrong, man. But you know what it was. They had the in-house producer and shit like that. Lil Fat might be a rapper. I might be fucking this shit up. I'm not even about to sit here and cap. I'm definitely a bigger Plies fan than a Boosie fan. And I also keep it 100,000. I'm more of a Webby fan than a Boosie fan. Savage Life, it's my shit. That's just what it is. Gutter Bitch is a crazy song. That shit sit with me to this day. But Boosie got set it off. Boosie was on Wipe Me Down. Boosie got all types of shit. And this is the thing. I might fuck with Webby shit more, but the hood fuck with Boosie way more. Way more. Way more than Plies. Way more than any other nigga I've named. They fuck with Boosie real tough. Now, he had the case. And I'm going to tell you, I got to say this real quick. The thing about Boosie, that when he did that shit when he was on camera is putting all the money on the ground, and he said, yo, if you see a 20 in this bitch, I'm a hoe or something like that. Niggas, dog, you got to understand, I was a young nigga at that time. I was a kid. Niggas really niggas in my age bracket that you see getting the Boosie fade and shit like that. They really low-key worship this nigga. Low-key, he a nigga that they like to emulate. He a nigga that they look up to. That's just what it is. A lot of actual real street niggas who probably wasn't street niggas at the time he was doing that. And that's something I'm going to speak to, whenever I get into my how rap influences niggas in real life. But so Boosie trajectory is a little bit different. He dropped in 2000, but the time where we became aware of him was 2006 when he dropped Badass, and he had set it off on that joint. So that's when we became aware of him. After that, he was very hot, Wipe Me Down and all this shit comes out. Webby dropped the Independent. They was just going up. The legal trouble begins somewhere around 2009, but in 2010, he gets locked up until 2014. After that, he drops another album, and he's charting with these albums. 2015, it's Touchdown to Cause Hell, something like that, I'm pretty sure. Let me check. I was right. And then he dropped Boo Pop in 2017. He was on Atlantic. He dropped 2 more albums after that went into 2019. Goat Talk and then Badass 3.5. And with that, those 2 albums were the first albums he made since he had his whole wave that didn't chart. And then after that, all the releases have been, pretty much in-house releases. That was his last set of major label releases and stuff like that. He's independent now. And I'm going to tell you how beneficial that is for Boosie. Boosie came to my city and booked himself. He had came a year or 2 before when he was in the Atlantic pipeline. And, he got booked by some promoters down here. But he said, fuck the middleman. And he was doing promotion saying the city name and stuff. We was like, oh, it's official. Boosie saying the city name. This shit is on his Instagram. Da-da-da-da-da. Little did I know at that time, most of the city didn't know, he was doing all that himself. Him and his team was booking himself in the cities that he know fuck with him heavy, and my city fuck with him heavy. Bruh, to a level you wouldn't believe. Shit, I might as well be in Baton Rouge the way niggas fuck with Boosie out here. Shout out to Boosie. But, with that, that's kind of like, it's kind of funny because of all the things that I'm talking about. You know how I said like Plies held on and he caught another hit and he reinvented himself and stuff like that. Boosie, he got in the game. He caught his wave. And, he was just a hot nigga. But, at his peak, when he hit the hottest point he was at, he got put in jail. So he didn't really fall off. Where the fall off point happens for a lot of these rappers, because again, think about it. Plies came out in motherfucking, 2007, like I mentioned, and then the decline began after 2010. So it was a 4-year run. Boosie started having his legal trouble in 2009. If we look at the schedule, like a lot of the people that I mentioned on here, they wasn't like in year 5 making hits and shit like that. It just wasn't going. Boosie gets into legal trouble. He sits down. It can be debated, and it's something I'm going to discuss at some point more than likely, if jail is a career enhancer or is it a career destroyer, or is it just completely irrelevant at this point? Like, because at one point, going to jail was the play for your rap career and stuff like that. He got out of jail, and it was like some Dragon Ball Z shit. Like, he came out the hyperbolic time chamber, and he had a quick wave. Again, I can't name none of the songs, no hits or nothing like that. I can't. But again, I'm sure niggas in my city definitely can. But the thing about Boosie being in jail, I don't know what he was doing in jail. I don't know if he had electronics. I don't know if he was plotting on the rap shit. But I tell you, man, while everybody was falling off or trying to maintain and stuff like that from his era, from this XXL Freshman cover and all of that, he was incarcerated, and his name was pretty much like gonna be his name when he got out, because the hood loved him when he went in. He wasn't going in for a motherfucking 20 ball or nothing like Max B. Shout out to Max B. But like, bruh, he's been gone so long to where we don't know what it's about to hit like when he get out. French Montana is in a good position. That's going to be good for Max, but that's a whole nother conversation. Boosie comes out and he really gets straight to the business. He's not on no bullshit. He's not motherfucking trying to be like the toughest nigga in fucking Nebraska. He's not fucking getting into shootouts and shit. No, he's strictly about the business. He's getting to the bag. He's doing the shit. I do want to say strictly, he got back to the bullshit eventually, but that's a whole nother thing. But with that being said, he put a team around him this time around. And also, he what wasn't out when he was out was Instagram and Instagram Live. He figured out about going on a live. And Boosie has a cult fan base. Boosie can go and say whatever the fuck he want on live about anything. All these hip hop media publications are going to post it. He's uncancelable because of that cult fan base as well. So he can go to war with a nigga like Lil Nas X and still have peak relevance. He could say some shit about Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union and they kids and still have peak relevance. He not going to no Miami game. He just gonna keep rapping. He gonna keep traveling. He gonna keep getting his bag. He gonna keep going on live. Now, I will say that when it comes to him and when it comes to Plies, their social media presence is more relevant than the music at this point. Far more relevant. It gets far more attention than the music. There are more people discussing what Boosie says on Instagram than there are people listening to his music as far as his new music that drops. That's just the truth. That's how come it hits all of everything and everybody everywhere is talking about it, but you can't name, most of you can't name, a Boosie single from the past 3 years. That's what it is. You probably haven't watched a Boosie music video in the past 3, and that's no knock on him, because at the end of the day, he's still eating. $15,000 a verse from Boosie is a discount. It's a discount, dog. It's a discount. Don't ask me how I know this. But yeah, that's basically it. I mean, I don't really have too much to say outside of, Boosie. I'm glad I saved him for last because I really feel like he has a team around him and he's got his operation at the helm, and him booking himself in my city and just booking his own tour and stuff like that, doing his own promo and stuff like that. That's brilliant shit when you're going independent and you still trying to make sure the bag circulate. You book the venue yourself, you call it, like, just all of that. That's brilliant. And that's just what it is. And I feel like he has the most control over what he's got going on because he's independent, still dropping music, and he's still relevant and all that. And that's just what it is. The one thing I would say is, what you got to understand, we looking at niggas like Drake, and this is for the young niggas especially. If, again, I know y'all probably not listening, but still, I'm going to talk to you. Niggas never have a Drake trajectory. None of them. No niggas have a Drake trajectory where you were a top 5 hottest nigga in the game since you come in the game to 13, 15 years in the game. Nobody has that type of trajectory. It took Jigga years to get hot. And even then, Jigga don't drop as much as Drake now. Even then, Jigga had a fall off point if we gonna keep it real, because Kingdom Come, if you're not a Jay-Z stan, that was a weak point in his career. Even then, he had a fake retirement. But Hove is still Hove. Hove got one of the best careers out here. So think about that. Hove got one of the best careers out here. He retired, had an album that a lot of niggas wasn't fucking with. It's debated to be one of the worst albums he made. But he still bounced back from it. American Gangster saved him, and he had a whole second wave. That's him. Drake has not had a fake retirement or a fall off or a need to bounce back at any point. So a Drake career is perfect. You look at him, you're not going to be Drake. That's just what it is. You look at Hove career is still fucking immaculate. You're not going to have that career. The majority of people who actually get in, you may have a one-hit career, depending on what type of lane you got and if you in a position to catch a hit anyway. You may have a motherfucking, like a 4-year wave where you hot. And then it's not even a label saying no to you. It's just that niggas is not that into you no more. Not as into you as they used to be. That's just the way the game is. The game is fickle. The game is shallow. And if you look at this for most rappers, but that's the thing. You have to be looking like, yo, I got to get it while I can. I got to save. I got to be prepared, for either sustaining this shit so that I can catch another one and reinvent myself in different ways, getting in different lanes. Because, like we talked about Boosie and Plies, they both doing social media, but Lupe Fiasco is teaching. And he's also doing Instagram lives, and his fan base is tapped in. Lupe Fiasco did an album in 2022 where he wrapped it all into a phone. He recorded the whole album through a phone. Made the whole album through a phone, put it out. Like, these are people who put themselves in good positions to be able to, eat off the cult fan base that they have years later. Even if you look at Papoose, he's still relevant in New York and stuff like that. He'll do a freestyle here and there, but he did love in hip hop. He did love in hip hop. And I can almost guarantee you this, Papoose is probably even doing some ghostwriting and shit like that. So you got to figure out if you make it if you were one of the lucky people who make it into the game, you got to figure out how you either gonna maintain it or transition past that 5 years, because Plies was aware of it. Boosie didn't have to be aware of it because Boosie went in when he was hot. He got out. He was hot again. And the game changed at that point, so you could sustain your career by yourself. Think about this. In the mixtape era, niggas was dropping music for free. I look at Young Dolph as a transition because I remember the transition of mixtapes. Once the streaming shit came into play around 2016, Dolph was dropping like crazy. But guess what? Dolph was in a position to where all that original music he's making, fuck putting it on Dat Piff, put it on Spotify and all this shit, because you could do that yourself and make money off of it. Now you can make money off the music, and you don't gotta say, man, this is a studio album. Like, nigga, just have the music. Call it whatever the fuck you want. I'm rocking like it's a mixtape. You could figure out if you want to call it a mixtape or an album later. Just take the music, listen to the music. You paying $10 to like some nigga to listen to all the music in the world. You gonna listen to my shit on there. The game changed. The game changed at that point. And Young Dolph, he was the type of rapper where if he was out in 07, he would have been all over Dat Piff and World Star, just dropping free music. But when that transition happened, you could drop and get paid. So, you got to be tapped in. You got to be tuned in. You got to understand what's going on. I do think all of these people had good careers. I don't care. Like, I know niggas is some, like, oh, this nigga had one hit. I don't give a fuck. A lot of niggas don't have no hit. And even if some of these cats didn't have hits, they still do they one too. Like what you call it? Shit, I named a few people. You could go back. Some of the people who don't got hits, they still do their thing to this day. That's just what it is. So with that being said, let me know your thoughts. I'm out.